So, Mark, I would love to hear your thoughts on the collaborative processes. We both love movies, and
Right.
one of the reasons that I love movies is I love to see synergy between directors and screenwriters, directors and actors, directors and cinematographers. You can see it on screen, like when quote game meets game, when two people that are at the height of their sort of powers get together in movies, what they produce is just magical, right? So I love
Right.
that collaborative synergy between people that are bringing different things to the game, but when they get together, they make something really special. So
You
with
know,
that being said, what do you see as a collaborative partnership, creative partnership in our line of work? So when a learning designer like myself and a
mhm.
learning experience designer like yourself collaborate, where can that go? I'll ask you, and then maybe you could ask me my thoughts.
Sure. I feel like we've been having this conversation for years because we both come out of the CCMTL school of like ed tech. We learned as we went, we learned on the ground. And a lot of our conversations were always about movies because not only do we love cinema, but you and I were kind of like, like Taxi Driver, like you're like Paul Schrader and Scorsese.
Right.
I feel like the learning designer solves like a lot of the educational problems, the structure. That's so what? Like, why does this exist? The motivations and the evidence for those motivations to tell the story. But a director kind of solves the communication problems. You're creating this audio visual experience and you're positioning that into an audience. And there's also like a psychological element there. Like, what is the viewer supposed to think? What is the viewer supposed to feel? And like you and I are like two sides to the coin. Like your superpower is learning design. In my experience is mostly, my background is mostly like television and radio. So I have a lot of that communications training that I bring to the digital world. So, like I said, I think form and function, Schrader, Scorsese, peanut butter and jelly. I think we've always leaned on each other for that. There's two edges to a sword, and you and I have always been that. And not just talking about it, but actually proving it. Creating educational experiences for folks here at the Columbia University and for our classrooms out around the world, not just here in New York, but we've touched a lot of places across the planet.
Absolutely. Maybe I could talk a little bit about it from my side with someone like you, and how that creative process works. I think that so if I would, with what I've learned over the last few years, if I could come back to the CTL and you and I could work together again, and I had the ability to sort of do this, I would say that for me, the creative process between a learning designer and a learning experience designer is you are there to sort of all of my limitations. You're there to sort of come in and bring your expertise to all the parts that I am a bit limited in. For example, if I were going to get together with a faculty member to think through a new course, I would absolutely want you there at the very beginning for the brainstorming sessions. Help us with all the different ideas that you could think of. How do we put them all out there? How do we organize these ideas? What are good ideas? What are bad ideas? Throw them all up there. And you would be sort of the person that I would love to see put all this stuff together and come up with something that we might not have even have thought of. I'm a little bit more limited at that brainstorming session kind of stuff. I see you being expert at it and really great at it. Um, Videos, that if we're going to make content videos, they need structure. They need storyboarding. That's not my thing. You'd come in. Can you help us storyboard a video? Get it to where it's a story, where it makes sense, where it's helping the learner learn this, but there's an emotional hook. Where should the emotional hooks be? I'm not that good at it. You're excellent at it. So that would be
Well,
your
that
part of the, creating content would be I could bring in the material and the curriculum and that, but you could bring in making it something that people would actually, want to watch.
Right. I think I think what separates videos from PowerPoint is story. And I
Sure.
think what separates story from everything else is this idea of transformation. Like
Sure.
if I said hey Michael, I lost my wallet, that's an anecdote.
Right.
But if I said, Michael, I lost my wallet, but one day I was walking down the street and I saw someone buying pizza with something. It was my wallet. So I ended up chasing the person and we ended up becoming good friends. Like there's an intro, there's a crisis, and then there's a denouement. So it goes from, I think it's easy to put together a video like as if it was like a syllabus, like in terms of sequence, but the idea of adding transformation, adding tone, adding transition,
Mhm.
those, I think those are audio visual design um, conventions that I can help bake into your course to kind of help tease out you know, the learning part, because it seems you know uh, education is a communication problem. Not only do you have to educate, but you have to inform and persuade. Those things I think make the learning stick too. So yeah, I would love it if you came back to the CTL and we could tag team on something again.
Absolutely. I have another way, another example of where you fit in, which is, I work with a lot of faculty and subject matter experts, and when they want to build something, they really want to put everything in it. In other words, their thinking is, well, if it's there, it's better that all this material is in the course. If they want to look at it or not, it's their choice. But at the same time, but the other side of that is, but we threw in everything and the kitchen sink, and people aren't going to navigate through this huge course. So this is where you come in to say, the user experience of this is a bit laborious. People are really having to trudge through this course. I think we need to slim it down. Maybe we could make 2 courses, but this course needs to be lighter. It needs to flow better. It needs to have a lot of sort of it just needs to be slimmed down. And that's a hard thing for someone like me to tell a teacher or a subject matter expert. And that's where you come in to say this course would actually function better if it were 40% smaller, and it flowed this way. So that's another piece that the user experience designer could come in and say, listen, you could make this course 30 hours, but if people aren't going to go through it, what's the sense? And I think that you could make that argument better than me. So that's another way where the experience designer comes in and helps the course by maybe cutting stuff out.
Yeah,
This is true of all art and medium. Every
that's
art
right.
is better when you take out the things that don't belong. But
Hmm.
somewhere along the line in academia, we have just we think that everything in there is better, to create these huge courses where, well, they have the option to go to it or not. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe it's not working. Maybe a smaller course is a better course. And that's a hard thing to bring into our line of work, but definitely needed.
Yeah, the human brain can only hold a certain kind of mental model for so long. Like, going back to movies, like, if David Lynch had his way, Dune would have been 6, 7 hours long,
Right.
but it had to be cut down because,
Right.
at the end of the day, it's about the audience. So that's why it was, 2.5, 3. I
Right.
think an experienced designer knows what not to put in,
Sure.
because I think, the student can only, it's a disservice to, you're going to fatigue a student, and it's funny. I when I was a boy, I went to Catholic school, and for
Mhm.
9 years, I feel like I was taught in a 19th century way of education that more was more,
Right.
but really a lot of it was just noise. Sometimes I'll create a web interface and there's a lot of white space in there, an instructor will get nervous. Like, oh, it looks empty. There's an opportunity to stuff more content and then more hyperlinks. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to create a grid so the screen is more scannable, because you don't read content online the way you would in a book. If you do feel beholden and if you want to pack in as much as you can into a learning design experience, you don't have to put it in all at once. You can create a structure where you can separate, is this salient to the learning experience, or is this ancillary? Is this nice to have, but more of a form of courtesy content? You don't have to like drop it all on everyone all at once. You can have it all. You can have it all, just not all at once. There's a time and a place for everything. And an experienced designer can show you how to scope out, the high priority stuff from the less important to the kind of the icing stuff. Not just where to put it. Well, we can also tell you the priority, because time and resources are very limited.
Yeah.
If an instructor wants to throw everything in there, there's a poor, beleaguered learning designer that has to. You don't want the designer to be crushed under the weight of all this stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, I think we can. Yeah, I think I've I've been in this business for almost a little over 2 decades, and I have a lot of mistakes under my belt. I have taken all of the wrong turns, so I can tell you what not to do as well as what to do.
And it's really great to see in this decade teams of course builders where a learning experience designer is part of the team. I don't remember being that way when I started, but it's great to now the team is comprised of teachers, subject matter experts, videographers, learning designers, experience designers, because it's all needed to make something that people at the end of the day want to go through and learn from and enjoy and be curious about. Like it all, I'm glad to see that we become a part of a bigger team, Mark. And
yes, it's just by necessity. I feel, yeah, like when we started out, content management systems were, you could wear 3 different hats. You could be the product designer and the manager, and you could do it. But I think things are becoming more complex, more specialized. Third-party tools and tactics are integrated into a course where, it's just that as our resources get more and more proliferated and more complex, it's like medicine, like ed tech, everyone has a specialty because a single person can't do it all. Like there was a time when one person could do it all, but not anymore.
Absolutely.